Hi guys, thank you for coming back to my channel. It is reading update time, and one thing before I get started, if you hear any kind of squeaking, strange noises in the background, I do not have anyone here, chained up. I'm not holding anyone hostage. It is Byron the dog. My roommate Tom is out of the house right now, and Byron has decided to make his displeasure known by vocalizing it in these little sort of squeaking, yowling, somewhat scary noises that he's making. So I just wanted to let you know what's going on if you hear them in the background. Anyway, I have 7 books to talk about today. It's 7 books in 2 different series. Okay, so the first book I wanted to mention is the first book in the Gallagher's of Ardmore trilogy by Nora Roberts, and it is called Jewel of the Sun. And this is actually the first book I've ever read by Nora Roberts, which is kind of strange saying that as someone who reads a lot of romance novels. And in fact, one of my very good friends who actually I've been friends with since I was a kid, this is her favorite author, and she sort of convinced me to give her a try. And I'm really glad that I did because I quite enjoyed this book. And it is set in Ireland. And it's it's the first book of a trilogy that deals with sort of fairies and legends and this spell. And this book is about a woman who moves to Ireland to live in this little cottage that belonged to her family. And she quit her job as a psychology professor, and what she really wants to do is be a writer. And she decides she's going to write a paper about folklore and fairy tales that are native to Ireland. She finds out that the cottage that she's living in, is supposedly haunted by this woman named Gwen, Lady Gwen, who supposedly fell in love with the prince of the fairies named Carrick, and a spell was cast, and she is doomed to walk the halls of the cottage until the spell is broken. And this whole sort of thing with Lady Gwen and Carrick runs through the entire trilogy. Meanwhile, each book is about a different couple, and this book, the first book, is about, oh my goodness, I forgot her name. Her name is Jude. Yes, Jude. And she meets Aidan, who is the oldest brother of the Gallagher family, and he is a bartender at the Gallagher pub. And he likes telling stories, and the two of them become close because he tells her all of these fairy tales that she needs for her book. And it's just a really sweet, very lighthearted, nothing too heavy book, and it was really very good, actually. And I think I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. The next book is the second book in the trilogy, which is called Tears of the Moon. And that's my phone. And this one is about Brenna and Sean Gallagher. Brenna is sort of a tomboy and works with her father as a sort of handyman all over the village. And Sean is the cook at Gallagher's pub, but he also makes music. He writes music and sort of is a dreamer. And Brenna has been in love with him pretty much her whole life, and they've grown up together. And, sort of the cliche storyline in romance novels. But actually, this book was incredibly sweet and charming, and I love Sean and Brenna together. They were very, very, very sweet. I enjoyed it, and I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. So there you go. Now, the third book in the trilogy is called Heart of the Sea, and unfortunately, I really, really did not like this book. In fact, with as much as I really enjoyed the first 2 books, this book really sort of fell flat. It was about the third member of the Gallagher family named Darcy, who was a waitress at the pub, and this American developer named Trevor, who decides he wants to build a theater onto Gallagher's pub to feature music and local events and stuff. And the reason I didn't like it is because Darcy is a very unlikable character. She's obsessed with being rich and famous, and not really famous, but being rich, and she's very spoiled. And Trevor is not really that much better, and I know people say that they sort of redeem themselves in the end, but I just didn't really like this book, unfortunately, so it only got 2 stars. Part of the reason why I haven't made a reading update video in so long is because I've kind of been obsessed with this series that I've been reading, it kind of has taken over my life. So the first book in the series is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. This book, I probably could do like a 45-minute video just talking about my feelings regarding this book. It took me over a year to read this book, which never happens, because usually if I don't like a book or if I have a problem with it, I will put it down and I will forget about it. But I was determined that I was going to finish this book, and eventually, when I got to around like the 350 page mark, I became obsessed. I don't know, something clicked in my brain and I just couldn't get enough, and I've sort of not looked back since. But for those of you who don't know, very quickly, because the Outlander verse is enormous, so Outlander, which is also a show on Starz. Okay, so Outlander is about a woman named Claire Randall who is a nurse in the 1940s in England, and she goes to Scotland on a second honeymoon with her husband Frank. And through a very convoluted sort of series of events, she finds herself at a place called Craignadoon. I know I'm not saying that right, but it's these standing stones in Scotland, and she finds herself falling through the stones. And when she falls through the stones, she is transported from 1940s England, or 1940s Scotland, into the 1700s Scotland. And she finds herself in the middle of a very, very difficult, dangerous time. It's not just for an English woman, but a woman in general. And there she sort of becomes the unwilling guest of a clan of Highlanders. And there she meets a young man by the name of Jamie Alexander Malcolm Mackenzie Fraser. And thereafter the story sort of takes off. And let me just say, the first 100 pages of this book were incredibly dull, and I don't know anybody who would disagree with me. Even the staunchest Outlander fanatic agrees that the beginning of this book is really difficult to get through. But once Claire makes it to Scotland, everything sort of picks up. And I had a lot of issues with this book, too many to go into now. But suffice it to say, I sort of have a love-hate relationship with this first book of the series. But yeah, in fact, so much so that I didn't really rate this book on Goodreads. I still haven't really decided what I rate it. But yeah, so there's that. And then as soon as I finished Outlander, I decided to be very sort of brave and dive right into the second book, which is called Dragonfly and Amber. This book freaking blew my mind with how much I absolutely loved this book. With as much as I had problems with Outlander, this book was fantastic. It was fan-freaking-tastic in my opinion. I love this book. I love pretty much everything about it, which is kind of strange because this is not the favorite book among Outlander fans. Mainly because of the way it begins. The way it begins is very sort of strange and very jarring. Diana Gabaldon has this habit of sort of liking to not only torture her characters but her readers as well, and this book was structured in a very strange way, and I thought it was very ingenious, and I loved it, and I just love this book. And still, even now, it's still my favorite of the books that I've read in the series. And I gave this one 5 stars, and it is now on my list of favorite books of all time. So there you go. Is Voyager, are you noticing like a trend? You see how huge these books are? So you probably get the idea of why I haven't been making videos, because I haven't been doing anything other than pretty much working and reading these books. So this is the third book, and for many people it's their favorite in the series. It was not my favorite. I struggled with certain things that happened in the second half of the book, but it was still very good. It was enjoyable, and I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. And yeah, by the time you're in this book, even when you have issues with the story and with the characters, and there might be times when I want to temple punch several characters in the books, but you're so far into this story that you can't look back. You have to keep going. This is the book that I just finished. And when I say just finished, I mean literally like a half hour ago I finished this book. And I feel like I've been reading it for about 6 months. But it is book number 4, and it's called Drums of Autumn. And Yeah, you know, I could probably take stock in Post-it Notes company now, just from what I used on this book. This book was, it pretty much kicked my ass. You know, I expected this to be like really sort of intense, but I had no idea. I had no idea going into this how incredibly um, ulcer inducing like the second half of this book would be. There were times when I wanted to shred the book, times when I wanted to burn it, and times when I wanted to just, you know, hug it and kiss it and have its babies. But it was emotionally draining, and yeah, I really think I'm gonna have to take like a little bit of a break from the series after reading this book because I can't, I can't. My brain is kind of exhausted. This one I haven't rated yet because, like I said, I just finished it. Probably a 4.5 star book for me. Yeah, it was just, yeah. There were just so many things that happened in this book that I had a problem with, and there was one character in particular who I just she's just driving me crazy. And when I say she, it's not even the person that most people would think I'm talking about. It's somebody else. And she's gone from somebody that I really liked in book 2 and 3 to somebody that I really want to feed to the wolves. And I'm hoping that my feelings towards her change. But as of right now, she's on my naughty list. So yeah, and like I said, I just finished this, so I'm not really sure what I'm going to read next. I don't know if I'm going to start the 5th book in the series, which is called The Fiery Cross, or if I'm going to try and read something else. But yeah, so there you go. Those are the books that I've read over the last couple months. So anyway, I will talk with you guys later, and happy reading, guys!